Hey Algebra 1, it's Mrs. Victor again. Unfortunately, my kids both have COVID, and I'm going to be doing videos for a couple of days for you guys. The soonest I can come back is Monday, and that's as long as everyone's feeling okay, and that's as long as I don't get a positive test. So I hope to see you guys by Monday, but we'll see how things play out. All right, you've already done this warm-up with Miss Lindstrom on page 46. So if you're not on page 46 on your workbook, please turn to page 46. And we're going to fill in the blank for the vocabulary word that I used quite a bit in my last video. It's called an extraneous solution. Think of it like an extra solution. And it was an extra solution. It's almost like somebody that wasn't invited to the party showed up to the party and doesn't belong there. An extraneous solution shows up as a solution, but when you check it, it doesn't work. So make sure you fill in the word extraneous solutions in the blank. And this here tells you that you must check all your solutions to verify they are truly accurate answers. Okay. Now you'll notice there's two examples on page 46. We're going to do both of them, but I'm also going to do a couple of extra practice problems on the back. And that's because I looked ahead at your homework for tonight, and the homework ones aren't very similar to the ones in the notes. So I created some more practice problems that are closer to what you're going to see in the homework, and I'm hoping that that will make homework time go a little bit easier for you guys. So let's do these basic ones, example 1 and example 2. I'm going to do the first one entirely with you, and then example 2, I'm going to suggest that you pause the video and try it on your own first. So let's go ahead and look at example 1. Just like we always do when we're solving equations, feel free to draw a line where the equal sign is. And our goal is to get x by itself. The problem is that we have this giant square root here. And just like yesterday's video, I'm circling the square root. There's nothing in front of the square root. There's nothing after the square root. And so my very first step is to square both sides. Okay, I'm going to rewrite the problem here so that I can show what I mean by squaring both sides. Okay. So I'm going to take both sides and put parentheses around it and square both sides. Now on the left-hand side, the little 2 here cancels with the entire square root over here, and the 5x plus 4 comes out. That's the easy side, because now on the right-hand side, we have to double distribute the x plus 2. Okay? What I suggest is do this off to the side. That's why there's a lot of room on this piece of paper. Take the x plus 2 and write it twice. In fact, I'm even going to draw an arrow, and I'm going to put right twice. Okay? So here we go. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. Now we have to take the 2 times the x, that's another 2x, and then take the 2 times the 2, and that's 4. If I went too fast, go back and rewatch that again. Now I'm combining like terms. 2x plus 2x gets me 4x, and then I bring down the plus 4. This right here should be like second nature to you guys at this point. If you struggle with this, then that's something we should maybe work on outside of class time. All right, so the x squared plus 4x plus 4 is now the next step here. Okay, so I did that work off to the side, and then I go back and I put it in. Okay. All right, now when we are solving an equation with an x squared, we need to get everything on one side equal to 0, okay? Get everything equal to 0. Now, sometimes the 0 is going to be on the left-hand side, and that's okay. What we want to do is bring everything to the side where the x squared is. So since we have an x squared on the right-hand side, I'm going to move the 5x over to the right by subtracting it. And I'm going to subtract it from the 4x because those are like terms. At the same time, I'm also going to subtract the 4 over. Okay, so the 5x cancels, the 4x cancels, and I'm left with 0 on the left-hand side. Now on the right-hand side, I have x squared, and in the middle, I have to do 4x minus 5x. 4 minus 5 is -1, so that gets me a -1x. And at the very end, 4 minus 4 is 0, that cancels. That doesn't always happen, but it did in this example. Okay, now normally we would try to factor at this point. We've got our many options. We can first check for a GCF. This is taking us back all the way into Unit 5 where we were learning factoring. So first we check for a GCF. I notice both terms has an x, and so I do have a GCF of 1x. So what I'm going to do is take that x out. If it helps, you can divide this by x and divide this by x. Okay? If I have two x's here and I take one away, I'm left with 1. If I have an x here and I take one away, these x's actually cancel each other, and I'm just left with the -1. Okay? I know this whole lesson is kind of really testing our previous skills from other units. We had to double distribute, we had to get everything equal to 0, which is an extra skill, and now we're factoring. So this is a lot of old material. But the good news is that we're through the hard part. Now what we can do is branch off, and we can set each piece equal to 0. So I'm going to take the x equal to 0, and then I'm going to take the x minus 1 and set that equal to 0. Here's one of my answers, but of course I have to check it. And then over here I'm going to add 1, and I get x equals 1, but of course I have to check that as well. So now we have our work cut out for us because we have to check both answers. So first I'm going to check x equals 0. Okay, here's my work for checking x equals 0. I'm going to take the 0, plug it back in for both x's. So I have square root of 5 times 0 plus 4, and then I'm going to put the 0 here as well, 0 plus 2. Okay, on the left-hand side, let me grab my calculator. I'm going to plug that entire left-hand side in my calculator. So I have 5 times 0 plus 4. Notice that's all underneath the square root. Press enter. That gets me 2. So on the left-hand side, I have 2, and on the right-hand side, 0 plus 2 is 2. So the answer x equals 0 is a good answer. Okay, now let's check x equals 1. All right, so I've got square root of 5 times 1 plus 4 equals 1 plus 2. And just like the previous question, I'm going to put this whole thing in the square root. So 5 times 1 plus 4. Notice that's all underneath the square root, and that gets me 3. On the right-hand side, 1 plus 2 is 3. So guess what? I get to keep both answers in this case. Okay, lots and lots of work for these. All right, so what I'd like you guys to do is see if you can model what we did in the previous question and try it over here. It is going to be slightly different, so if you get to a point where you're stuck, go ahead and press play and watch me do the problem. So go ahead and pause it and give it a try, and I'll jump in and you can see how you did. Okay, so let's work this one out. I've got a square root here. What I'm going to do is start by squaring both sides. Let me rewrite the question here. So I'm going to square both sides by putting parentheses. Okay. The left-hand side, the 10 minus x comes out. The right-hand side, I have to double distribute that. Okay. Now, you guys, we don't have to really do this again because it's the exact same as the previous question. Okay. But you would have to do this off to the side just like we did on the last one. It's the same thing as the last problem though, so no need to really show all the work off to the side since we did it on the last one. Okay, same concept though. We have an x squared here, and I need to get 0 on one side. So I like the fact that the x squared is on the right-hand side, so I'm going to move the 10 and the negative x over. I'll go ahead and subtract the 10 from the 4. That cancels. Now because this is a negative x, I'm going to add x to both sides. So do plus x there, and now the x's cancel. So I have 0 equals. On the right-hand side, I have x squared plus 5x minus 6. All right, now this one's different, and this is what I was meaning by if you were to try this problem on your own, you might not know what to do at this point. We would check for a GCF, but there is none. Okay, I can't divide by a common number, and this piece does not have an x, so I can't divide by an x either. But what we can do is product sum. So remember the t-chart. We need to multiply to the -6, and we need to add to the 5. I know 3 times 2 is -6. 3 plus 2 is 5. But if I'm really careful, this combination actually doesn't work. In order to get the negative 6 here, one of these has to be negative. And if one of them are negative, I'm never going to get 5. So be careful with your combination. Although it might look like it's going to work, it might not. In this case, I have to use 6 times 1. And in order to get the negative 6, one of them has to be negative. In order to get the 5, it's the 1 that has to be negative. Okay, so with product sum, 6 times negative 1 is my magic number. So I'm going to say x plus 6 times x minus 1. Okay, now I branch off. X plus 6 equals 0, so subtract 6, and I get x equals negative 6. We'll check that in a minute. And then here, x minus 1 equals 0, add 1, and I get x equals 1. We'll check that now too. Okay, so off to the side, let's check both answers. Let's first check x equals negative 6. A lot of times the negative answers don't work, but you always want to double check just to be sure. All right, so we're going to take negative 6 and plug it in here. Be careful with the double negative here that we're going to see in just a second. So I've got 10 minus a negative 6. See the double negative there? I already had a negative in the problem, and I'm plugging a negative in, so be careful there. And then on the right-hand side, we have negative 6 plus 2. Okay, in my calculator, on the left-hand side, I'm going to type in the square root of 10 minus a negative 6. See the double negative? That gets me 4. Okay, but on the right-hand side, negative 6 plus 2 gets me negative 4. That is not true. So guess what, you guys? We can cross out the negative 6. That's actually an extraneous solution. It was not invited to the party, but it showed up anyway. All right, so let's take 1 and plug it in. 10 minus 1, and then 1 plus 2. We don't have to worry about double negatives here. On the right-hand side, we have square root of 10 minus 1. I know that's 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. So on the left-hand side, I get 3, and 1 plus 2 is also 3. So I get to keep the answer x equals 1 because it worked when I checked it. All right. As you guys can see, these types of questions are a lot more work than what we were doing the past 2 days, but I know you guys can handle it. Let's do a couple more practice problems. I'm hoping that my video won't go longer than 20 minutes like yesterday's. But let's go ahead and turn the page. So we were on page 46, turn the page to page 47, and I have some extra practice problems for you ready to go. Now, these are very similar to homework. Similar to homework, okay? So make sure you take really good notes on these 3 problems because I made sure that they were close to the homework problems and it should help you be successful on the homework. Okay, so here we go. I don't have anything in front of the square root, nor do I have anything after, so I'm going to start by squaring both sides. And if you want to pause the video to try it on your own, you guys, go ahead and do that. Pause and then press play once you have given it a try. All right, so I'm going to square both sides. Over here, the square root goes away. I have 7x plus 8. On the right, I have x squared. Just like before, I want everything to be equal to 0. I want to bring everything to the side where the x squared is. So I'm going to subtract the 7x over here. There's nothing to subtract it from though, so it's just kind of being subtracted from nothing. And same with the 8, subtract the 8. So those cancel, and I have 0 equals x squared minus 7x minus 8. I check for a GCF, but there is none. And so I'm going to go ahead and try product sum. My product is negative 8, and my sum is negative 7. Pause the video here if you want to try that on your own, figuring out the combination. The correct combination here is negative 8 times 1, because negative 8 plus 1 gets you the negative 7. So we would write that in our parentheses. We have x minus 8 and x plus 1. Branch off. This is going to get me x equals positive 8. I sort of skipped a step and did that in my head there. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. And then over here I get x equals negative 1. All right, now we do need to check those. So we'll do that off to the side. So going back to the original problem, I'm going to take 8 and plug it in. So I have 7 times 8 plus 8. And then again, take the 8 and put it in on the right-hand side. Okay. Now, I'm going to get my calculator. I'm hoping the entire left side is equal to 8. So let's try it out. Square root 7 times 8 plus 8 equals, yay, I get 8. So that answer is good. We can keep the answer of x equals 8. Okay, now let's check the other one. I want to take -1 and plug it in for x. Remember what I said, a lot of times the negative answers don't end up working. So I kind of have a hunch that this one's not going to work, but let's check it just to be sure. We are hoping that the entire left-hand side is equal to -1. So let's type the square root. 7 times -1 plus 8 equals, uh-oh, I get +1, not -1. That is not equal. So I'm going to cross that answer out, and I just keep the answer x equals 8. All right, moving on to number 2. I've only got 2 more for you guys to try. Right now I'm close to 16 minutes on the video, so I think I'm doing okay on timing. All right, pause the video, give this one a try if you would like. All right, this one's going to require double distributing because I have 2 things on the right-hand side. We're going to start by squaring both sides. On the left-hand side, the 2 and the square root cancel. So I just have 4 plus 2x. That comes out. Now over here, I'm going to have to double distribute. Let me do that all the way at the bottom of my paper because I don't have a ton of room over here. So we had 2 plus x times 2 plus x. Okay, just like that. 2 plus x squared turns into 2 plus x times 2 plus x. All right, here we go. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times x is 2x. X times 2 is another 2x. And x times x squared is another x squared. Now, I want to write this in standard form, though. So the x squared is going to come first. Then I'm going to combine my 2 x's to get 4x. And then the plus 4 goes at the end. If you guys are careful and notice, the 2 plus x was the exact same thing as x plus 2, just in a different order. So notice we ended up with the same thing, x squared plus 4x plus 4. So I'm going to bring that back into our problem. X squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay. Next step, we want to get it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the 4 over here, and then I'm going to subtract the 2x over here. Okay, so the 4's cancel, the 2x's cancel, and I have 0 equals x squared. Now, if I subtract here, 4 minus 2 is 2, so I get 2x. And just like the first problem that we did, 4 minus 4, that cancels as well. That doesn't usually happen. So there actually is a GCF here. I can take out a GCF of x because I have nothing here that was able to come down. And so I am actually able to take out an x. So if I remove an x, I get x plus 2. Let me explain how I did that. Sorry, I did that really fast. So let me back up and show a little bit more work. We determined that my GCF is x because both of these have an x and I can remove it. So if I divide both of them by x, if I have 2 x's here and I'm taking one away, I'm left with 1 x. And here, if I have 1 x and I take 1 away, those end up canceling and I'm just left with the 2. Okay, so we take the x out and we're left with x plus 2. Now I can branch off and set them both equal to 0. So I have x equals 0, and then I have x plus 2 equals 0. This one's done. We'll check it in a minute, but this one I have to subtract the 2 and I get x equals -2. All right, let's check both of them. So if I check x equals 0, putting this back into the original, I've got square root of 4 plus 2 times 0 equals, and then I had 2 plus x, so that's 2 plus 0. Okay, now we know the right hand side, 2 plus 0 is 2. So we're hoping that the left hand side is also 2. So square root of 4 plus 2 times 0, and I get 2. Okay, so that answer is good. Let's check the other one. Let's check x equals -2. So here we go, put -2 in for x here and here. So I have 4 plus 2 times -2. Let me extend that square root a little bit. And then 2 plus a -2. Okay. All right, let's figure out what the left side is equal to. So I have square root of 4 plus 2 times -2. That's 0. So the left side is 0. And let's see what the right side is. 2 plus -2, also 0. So hey, we get to keep both answers this time. Okay, All right, and again, this is where I would ask, are there any questions? But I can't do that. Okay, guys, I'm going a little bit over 20 minutes. I apologize, but there's one more example I want to do with you guys, and this is again very similar to a homework question. That's really going to help you. Okay, to get started, I want to get rid of the square root, so I'm going to go ahead and square both sides. Good news, you guys, we don't have to double distribute. There's only one piece over here, so there's no need to do the double distribute work. On the left-hand side, the root and the 2 cancel, and I'm bringing down everything that was inside the square root. And on the right-hand side, I no longer have just an a, I have an a squared. All right, now this one's a little different, and this is why I wanted to do one with you like this, because it's very similar to homework. I have an a squared on the left, and I have an a squared on the right. So in order to solve this one, we have to get them together, okay? So I'm going to move this one over to the left because this one's smaller. And if I cancel those, then there's my 0 that I was hoping for. Okay. Sometimes the 0 ends up on the left, like over here. Sometimes the 0 ends up on the right. It just depends on the problem. All right, so think of the a squared as like an apple. If I have 2 apples and I'm going to take an apple away, I'm left with 1 apple. Okay. And then bring down your minus 16. Okay, now I don't have a regular a term, okay? It's not like here where we had an x squared, an x term, and a number, okay? I just have I have an a squared and a number. There's no regular a. So when that happens, we can go ahead and move the other one over to the other side. We actually don't want it equal to 0. So we have a squared equals 16. And if you remember, we would get rid of a squared piece by square rooting both sides. It's been a while since we've done that, but it was within the last month or so. Square root both sides. And the only thing you have to remember is don't forget plus or minus. So I'm going to write these separately because we do need to check both answers. We get a equals 4 and a equals negative 4. Instead of writing them as plus or minus, let's write them separately and let's check both of them. Okay, so let's check the 4. I'll put 4 back into the original problem. So we have 2 times 4 squared minus 16 equals, and then remember this was just an a, not an a squared. So the 4 goes on the right-hand side. Let's see if the left-hand side is equal to 4. So I have square root 2 times 4 squared minus 16. Press enter. Yay, I get 4. So I can keep the answer of positive 4. Now let's plug negative 4 in. So we have 2 times, use parentheses here. Okay, so I went back to the original problem. Let me show that. I'm putting negative 4 here and negative 4 here, but because it's negative and you're about to square it, make sure you use parentheses there. Also, when you plug it into the calculator, make sure you use parentheses. So we have the square root, 2 times parentheses, negative 4, close parentheses, squared, minus 16 equals, and I get positive 4. But the right-hand side is negative 4. That's not equal, and so we would cross out that answer, and we just keep a equals 4. Okay, guys, that is it. Now for homework, there is a question that I am having Miss Lindstrom tell you guys to skip. I'm going to put it right here so that you know. Homework is on page 48, but I'm only going to give you 3 questions on there. There's 4 on the worksheet, but I'm going to only give you 3, so I want you to skip number 22. Number 22 has kind of a twist in it, and it requires the quadratic formula, which I don't think you guys want to do. So make sure that you took good notes. Just like yesterday, take a picture of your work and submit it under the assignment on Google Classroom. I will make it worth points and make it worth your while. And then 7th period is dedicated to doing the 3 homework problems. Okay, please speak up if you need help and ask Mr. Spivak 7th period if you need any help. All right, guys, have a great day. I hope to see you soon. Bye.